Harlequin Audio is proud to bring you The Black Sheep's Secret Child by Schield, a Harlequin Desire novel, performed by Landon, and The Rancher Returns by Brenda Jackson, a Harlequin Desire novel, performed by Crisden. 1. Savannah Caldwell bypassed the line of partygoers held in a queue by velvet ropes and headed for the burly linebacker with the crooked nose guarding the nightclub's front entrance. Club Tease was only open Friday through Monday. Without a table reservation, the average wait for general admission on a Monday night was 1 to 3 hours. Savannah had no intention of standing around that long to get in to see her brother-in-law. A driving beat poured from the club's mirror-lined doorway. At 1 o'clock in the morning, Club Tease was in full swing, and Savannah was actively second-guessing her impulse to hunt down Trent to discuss business at this unorthodox hour. But she'd been turned away from his office earlier when she tried to make an appointment with his assistant, and so coming here seemed the only way she could get him to acknowledge her. A wave of melancholy caught her off guard. She'd been fixated on Trent since age 11, when she'd left Tennessee and moved to L.A. to live with her Aunt Stacy, the Caldwell family's live-in housekeeper. At first, Savannah had just wanted him to like her. As she entered high school, she'd developed a full-blown crush on him. But it wasn't until she'd moved to New York City at 18 and began modeling that Trent finally noticed her as a woman. When she'd married Trent's brother, Rafe, 16 months ago, Trent had severed all contact with her. The loss had been devastating. To cope, she'd buried her sadness, but suppressing her emotions had turned her into a poorly crafted replica of who she used to be. She spoke less, dressed and acted like a matron twice her age. She'd lost all touch with the optimistic young woman who dreamed of a loving family and a husband who adored her. Savannah stepped up to the blonde bouncer with the well-defined cheekbones. In 4-inch heels, she stood 6 feet tall. Yet the top of her head came no higher than the second button of his snug black polo with Club T's logo. Where 10 minutes ago she'd been truly determined, she was suddenly awash in hesitation. Even if Savannah was comfortable with confrontation, she was no match for this man. He was accustomed to subduing intoxicated, belligerent troublemakers twice her size. WWCD. What would Courtney do? She drew in a breath to counteract her rising anxiety and ran through the centering exercises her acting coach had drilled into her. Playing the part of wealthy, mean girl Courtney Day on a soap opera for 3 years had enabled Savannah to summon the demanding character at will, even 2 years after she'd stopped acting. In the early days of working on the show, Savannah had struggled in a role as foreign to her as Courtney. While she'd certainly encountered enough rich, entitled, and manipulative women during her years of living in the Caldwell household to draw from to create Courtney, Savannah hated the sort of conflict the socialite thrived on. Savannah would rather retreat than stick up for herself, and had a hard time acting as if everyone should rush to do her bidding. She'd landed the role because of how she'd looked in Courtney's designer clothes, with her hair and makeup done by professionals, not because she could act. Within the first 2 days, it was obvious she was going to be fired unless she learned to embrace Courtney's mean girl persona. A fellow actor recommended her acting coach. Bert Shaw was tough and smart. He convinced her to live the persona 24/7 until she was more familiar with Courtney than Savannah. It had taken 2 weeks, but once she surrendered to Courtney's strengths, her flaws were easier to accept. With a slow blink, Savannah wrapped herself in her alter ego once more. "I need to speak with Trent," she told the gatekeeper. To her shock, the man nodded. The smile he gave her was surprisingly gentle for one of his imposing bulk. "Of course, Mrs. Caldwell. He said to let you right in." Savannah wasn't sure whether to be delighted or worried that Trent had at long last made himself available after ignoring her phone calls for the last 7 days. What sort of game was he playing? Knowing Trent the way she did, it could be any number of things. "He'll be in the VIP section upstairs." The bouncer unhooked the rope from the stanchion and gestured her toward the entrance. Courtney treated most people as if they existed only to serve her. Savannah should have sailed.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?